Hi, I'm Betty. Welcome to my kitchen. We had some friends in for dinner the other night, and dinner was sort of a Spanish theme. I'd made my not quite paella, the recipe for which you can find on the blog. And for dessert, I decided to make flan, which is a very traditional Spanish dessert. And I turned to my old faithful recipe from a book called Clarita's Cocina. This was a book, one of the very first cookbooks I think I ever owned, which was given to me by a family member in Tampa. The family was in the restaurant business. Clarita was of the family who owned a restaurant called Las Novedades, one of the most famous restaurants in Tampa. So here's the recipe from Clara. The ingredients for this delicious dessert are amazingly simple. I have 3 eggs, 3 tablespoons of sugar, a half teaspoon of vanilla, and a cup of milk. You can use plain milk or you can use half and half, whichever you prefer. The half and half does make for a more luxurious custard. So here we go. I'm just going to break the eggs into this bowl. Now I'm making a half recipe here. The recipe that will appear printed will be for the full recipe, which will make 6 individual custards. I said I'm only going to make 3 today. So there are my eggs, my sugar, which also has a pinch of salt in it, and my half teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to start by whisking this mixture together really well. It's important that it be thoroughly mixed. I think Clara in her recipe says you should whisk it at least to the count of 25. They're nice and mixed. Now my milk, which is quite hot. In the old days, they told you had to scald milk. And this was probably before the days of pasteurization. Today, it's only necessary to really heat the milk until it's quite warm. So you want to start by adding it slowly so it doesn't scramble your eggs. And that's called tempering. And once you have a little bit in, you can proceed more quickly. Now that I've whisked this, I'm going to strain it into a clean jug and eventually, of course, pour it into my custard dishes. Before we do that, we're going to caramelize some sugar, and we'll go to the stove to do that. To make these custards special, what we do is we line the custard cups before we put the custard in. We line it with some caramelized sugar. And I'm starting that process here. I have about, 6 or 8 tablespoons of sugar, which I've got in a heavy skillet. And I'm going to do this over medium heat. The important thing is not to rush the process. It does take time, and just be patient with it, really. Let it sit on the heat until you see it start, until you see the sugar, let me just get this all together here, until you see the sugar start to melt. And you don't want to stir it. What you can do is swirl it around in the pan, but once it starts to melt, don't stir it, or you'll get these lumps which will never melt. So we'll just let this take its time. Once the sugar starts to melt, you can start swirling it around the pan. Just give it a shake to keep it fairly even. As I said, it's a process that just takes time, and you do have to be patient with it. but you'll be rewarded with this beautiful caramel colored sugar. You have to watch it. Once it starts to color, you do have to be careful because it can burn very quickly. And just swirl it around in the pan to get all of that melted. All right, we're almost there. You can see that it's becoming this beautiful golden brown, and it's perfectly melted. It may seem like a big pan for such a small amount of sugar, but it's really quicker and easier to melt it in a flat skillet than, say, it would be in a small pot. It goes faster and you have more control. So I'm just looking for the perfect amber color. And I think I'm just about there. Yep, that's about as far as I want that to go. It does actually continue cooking for a moment or two just from the heat of the pan. So there you have it, beautifully caramelized sugar. And we'll take this over and pour it into our custard dishes. Be careful when you're working with this. Melted sugar like this is incredibly hot, and you can give yourself a serious burn with it. Now that I've lined these custard cups with the caramel sugar, I'll just fill them from my jug. And I've got them in a larger dish, which I'm going to fill with hot water, and they'll bake in that. The reason for doing that, it surrounds it with a nice gentle heat. Actually, I've got enough there for one more. I'll do that later. So I'm going to transfer these to the oven, which I have preheated to 275 degrees. I'm just going to pull this rack out. And I'm going to fill that with hot water. When I do this, I like to use a funnel to make sure that I don't splash any water into whatever it is I'm cooking. Just fill that up so it comes about halfway up your custards. There we go. And these are going to bake for 40 to 50 minutes. I'll check them by giving the pan a little shake, and when they don't jiggle anymore, I'll know they're set. So off they go for 40 minutes. My custards have baked actually for 50 minutes, and I'm going to check them. If I shake this just a little, they don't jiggle, so I know they're done. So I'll remove them. And at this point, I'm going to transfer them to a cooling rack. I'm going to use my tongs to remove the hot custards from their water bath. And a great trick is to just wrap a rubber band around the end of your tongs. It gives a nice non-slip grip. I'll just lift these up. Oops. I'm going to let these cool on the rack for a bit and then transfer them to the refrigerator and let them chill for at least an hour or two before I try to unmold them. So as I said, they'll cool here rather, and then go in the refrigerator to chill completely. My custard has chilled, and now I'm ready to unmold it. What I'm going to do is take a knife and just run it around the edge. And then all I need to do, with any luck, I may have to just ease one side. There we go. Unmold it onto a plate. Now to garnish this just a little, I'm going to take a strawberry and make thin slices almost down to the end. Give that a little twist with my fingers and it makes a pretty fan. I knock that end off there. And there, a pretty garnish for a beautiful Spanish flan. At the end of the video, I'm going to include some pictures from the Las Navidades restaurant and the Spanish Park restaurant in Tampa, which will give a little history of where we first encountered this wonderful recipe. I know it's one you're going to enjoy.